The wind howled through the crimson banners as dawn broke over a silent battlefield. Ash drifted like snow across the wreckage of empires. In the middle of it all stood a man draped in red and black, his armor dull from countless wars, his eyes steady, his expression calm. They called him the Crimson Strategist. For decades, nations had tried to read his mind, armies had tried to break his silence, and kings had tried to buy his loyalty. None succeeded. Because he didn't fight for victory, he fought for mastery. And mastery cannot be bought, borrowed, or stolen. It must be built in silence, carved through patience, and guarded by discipline. In every war he fought, he spoke little, but his silence spoke louder than any commander's speech. Soldiers said his presence alone changed the rhythm of battle. When he stood still, time seemed to slow down. When he walked forward, fear began to fade. His men believed that he could see outcomes before they happened. But the truth was simpler. He had trained his mind to remain calm when others lost control. He understood that emotion clouds judgment, and judgment decides fate. Years earlier, before he became the strategist the world feared, he was a reckless soldier desperate for recognition. He craved applause, chased validation, and mistook noise for strength. Every defeat shattered him. Every insult provoked him. He fought with anger instead of vision. And because of that, he lost everything. One night after a crushing defeat, he sat alone under a blood-red sky. His sword lay beside him, his armor cracked, his pride gone. He realized that every battle he had lost wasn't lost to the enemy. It was lost to himself. His anger had blinded him. His pride had deafened him. His need to prove had destroyed him. That night, he buried his sword in the ground and made a promise that changed his destiny. He vowed never to fight another war until he had conquered his mind. For years, he disappeared. People thought he was dead. But he had gone to train. Not his body, but his thoughts. He studied patterns of nature, the flow of rivers, the patience of mountains, and the silence of the stars. He learned that power doesn't come from force. It comes from focus. He learned that silence is not absence of sound, it's the presence of clarity. And when he returned, he was no longer a soldier. He was a strategist. He began to lead again, but this time, everything was different. Before each battle, he sat quietly with closed eyes, breathing slowly as his men waited in awe. They expected orders. Instead, he gave them philosophy. "We do not fight for rage," he said. "We fight for reason. We do not attack in noise. We move in silence." And then they would march without shouting, without chaos. Their discipline terrified enemies more than any scream could. Armies that were louder, larger, and stronger fell apart because they lacked one thing: control. The strategist's calmness was contagious. Even in the middle of war, his soldiers could feel his presence guiding them like a current beneath the surface of the ocean. But his philosophy wasn't only for war. It was for life. Because every human faces battles, emotional, mental, financial, spiritual. The same principles apply. If you can control your mind, you can control your world. Neuroscientists today confirm what ancient strategists understood centuries ago. The human brain under stress releases cortisol, narrowing focus, increasing panic, and suppressing logic. Calm breathing and mental control restore the prefrontal cortex, the seat of decision-making and strategy. The strategist didn't have science, but he had experience. He knew that stillness saves lives, and that's why he survived every storm. He once faced a siege that lasted 30 days. His army was starving, his men were breaking, his enemies mocked him from the hills. Yet he remained composed. Instead of attacking, he waited. He studied the enemy's routine, their exhaustion, their arrogance. On the 31st night, when the invaders grew careless, he launched a silent counterattack under moonlight. No trumpets, no shouting, just precision. By dawn, the siege was over. He didn't celebrate. He simply stood on the hill and said, "The loudest noise in victory is silence." The strategist's wisdom reached beyond the battlefield. Leaders came from far away to hear him speak. But his teachings were strange. He didn't talk about weapons or tactics. He spoke about patience, discipline, and timing. He taught that timing is the unseen weapon of the wise. Every failure, he said, is not defeat. It's mistimed success. Wait long enough, and every storm reveals a path. He believed most people lose not because they are weak, but because they rush. They act out of emotion instead of understanding. He once told a young commander, "You cannot command others until you command yourself." That sentence became his legacy. In today's world, this wisdom is more valuable than ever. Every second we are pulled in 1,000 directions. Notifications, opinions, distractions, all noise. People chase speed, not progress. They seek attention, not mastery. The strategist would look at our world and smile quietly, because he would know that the loudest voice is not always the strongest. The calm mind still wins the war. Research from Stanford University shows that multitasking reduces efficiency by up to 40%. People who take small, mindful breaks make better long-term decisions. Success is not about constant motion. It's about strategic motion. The strategist lived by that law. He planned 10 moves ahead but executed one at a time. He believed every wasted movement drains power. There's a story of a rival general who once challenged him to an open duel. The crowd expected a fierce fight. Instead, the strategist stood motionless for minutes, eyes locked on his opponent. The tension broke the other man's focus. In one single strike, the duel was over. Later, someone asked him how he won without force. He said, "I waited until his mind broke." The body follows the mind. That line became legendary because that's how life works. Every challenge tries to break your focus first. If your mind holds, your victory is already written. He was not invincible. There were times when plans failed, when trusted allies betrayed him, when he doubted himself. But even in doubt, he stayed still. He once said, "When you cannot move forward, don't move at all. Wait, the answer will come when the noise fades." And it always did. Because patience is not passive. It's power under control. The modern world calls it emotional intelligence. Psychologists describe it as the ability to respond, not react. The strategist mastered it before the term existed. In his later years, he retired to a mountain fortress overlooking valleys he once fought across. Visitors came seeking wisdom. He welcomed them with silence. Hours would pass before he spoke. When he finally did, his words felt like sharpened steel. Phew, precise, unforgettable. He told a young scholar the most dangerous person is the one who can think clearly under pressure. He told a king conquerors destroy lands. Strategists build legacies. And to a soldier haunted by guilt, he said, "Forgive yourself, or you will fight ghosts forever." His teachings became seeds for generations. They spread beyond war into philosophy, business, leadership, and personal growth. Because strategy is not just about battles, it's about choices. Every morning he would walk to the edge of his fortress and watch the sunrise. The color of dawn always reminded him of blood and renewal, of the cost of power and the peace that follows it. One day his apprentice asked him, "Master, what is the greatest victory you have ever achieved?" The strategist smiled faintly and replied, "The day I learned to be calm." That single sentence carried more weight than any story of conquest. Because in truth, all the victories in the world mean nothing if you cannot master yourself. The strategist's calmness became his armor, his shield, his sword, and his compass. He lived longer than most of his peers, not because of luck, but because of balance. Modern medicine now proves that people who manage stress live longer, think clearer, and recover faster. Calmness is a form of strength that saves you from self-destruction. In the final years of his life, the strategist stopped teaching through words. He began teaching through presence. Students who sat with him said they could feel peace radiating from him. It wasn't mystical. It was mastery of energy, the control of reaction. He had become what he always sought to understand, a man who needed no noise to prove his worth. When he finally passed, no one knew the exact moment. He had fallen asleep during meditation, a faint smile on his face, hands folded calmly. The fortress bells rang softly in the wind, and his followers wept in silence. They built no statue, no shrine. They carried his teachings instead, because he never wanted to be worshipped. He wanted people to live wisely. His philosophy still applies to you. Every argument you avoid, every temptation you resist, every emotional storm you survive quietly, those are victories of the mind. You are the strategist of your own life. Every decision, every setback, every dream is part of your battlefield. The enemy is not the world, it's your distraction, your fear, your impulse. To win, you must think like he did. Do not rush, observe, prepare, act with intent, speak less, listen more. Alai! Train your calmness until your silence becomes unshakable. That is how you win the invisible wars no one sees. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember the man in crimson armor standing alone in the storm. He did not scream. He did not run. He stood breathing slowly, eyes steady, waiting for the storm to pass. Because storms always pass. And when they do, those who stayed calm remain standing. The Crimson Strategist was not a myth. He was a mirror of what you could become. A person so focused, so disciplined, that chaos loses its power over you. You may not command armies, but you command your choices. You may not fight wars, but you fight doubt, fear, and time. Be strategic in your silence. Be patient in your rise. Build strength that no one sees until it's too late for the world to ignore. You don't need to announce your goals, just move with precision. You don't need to explain your pain. Let your growth do it for you. One day, people will wonder how you stayed calm when others fell apart. They'll ask where your power came from, and you'll smile quietly, remembering this story because now you understand. Real strength does not shout. Real focus does not panic. Real warriors do not need noise to prove their worth. They simply move with purpose, breathe with patience, and think with clarity. That is the lesson of the Crimson Strategist. That is the essence of silent strength.